What if I were to tell you that everything you are experiencing right now, the setbacks, the breakthroughs, the synchronicities, the chaos, is all being perfectly orchestrated by you, even if you're unaware of it? You see, most people think that reality is something that's out there, an external force that they need to fight or to manipulate or to hustle to work through. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Reality isn't responding necessarily to your goals, or your vision boards, or your affirmations. It's responding to something much deeper. It's responding to the world within you. There's an ancient principle, one that was quietly woven into the ancient mystery schools and esoteric texts from across time, that reveals a law more powerful than cause and effect. A law that governs what actually shows up in your life. And if you don't understand this law, you'll mistake chaos for failure and miss the doorway to your next breakthrough or quantum leap in your life. And so in this video, we're going to pull back the curtain even more to go over how this reality simulation works at an even deeper level. You'll learn why your inner world is the true architect of your reality, how balance is always restored whether you know about it or not, and why things seem to often fall apart before things can actually click into place. This is the part of manifestation that most are either unaware of or run away from. But once you understand it and learn how to work with it, which we will be covering, you'll stop resisting it and you'll see so many of the good things you want in your life start to come in. So if you're ready to outsmart the illusion and step into the next level of creation for yourself, then pay attention for the next little while, take some notes if that helps you, and let's jump into it. Now, in this video, like I mentioned, we're going to cover one of the parts of manifestation or reality creation that most people are either unaware of, that's the vast majority of people are unaware of this, or for those who are aware of it, they run from it, they're a little scared of it. And so in this video, we're going to be going over exactly what it is and how to stop running from it if you are, and what will happen if you do stop and you actually confront this and work with it. Now, before we do that, we need to start off by going over a little bit deeper how our reality actually operates. You heard me mention in the intro how the inner world is the architect, and it's very, very true. And something I want you to keep in mind is the idea that the outer world follows the inner world. You see, you have this inner world, this almost quantum world that this outer world actually follows and is responding to all of the time. And so many of us have been taught to put all of our emphasis and attention on the things outside of ourselves rather than what's contained in this inner world. There's a reason you'll hear quotes such as "you get what you think about," and I always add "feel about" most of the time. Thoughts and your thinking are not an external thing that you're doing. They're an inner world activity, right? You don't think a thought and then it's immediately this physical thing, right? It is a non-physical phenomena or activity that you are engaging in. And yet your thoughts, the accumulation of those thoughts, the consistency of those thoughts lead to so much of what then absolutely occurs in your outer world. And so it is an inner world mechanism and activity that is leading to these outer world results. But it goes even deeper than that, but it's just enough to know that the outer world of the physical, this thing we call physical, follows the inner world, meaning the inner world is leading the show. It is the architect of your life. Now, I mentioned this a lot, but this repetition is very useful even if you've heard it before. Again, it's the difference between knowing about something and truly knowing it, hearing it enough to integrate it and actually use it. And so keep in mind that you are a three-part being, just to simplify this. And you have a physicality to you, absolutely. You know, we're not going to start saying this is not physical or isn't some kind of physicality, or at least what we perceive as physicality. And it's not practical to dismiss that. In fact, it can be a little bit dangerous to dismiss that. That's a part of the game, and it's something that we have here. So we're not dismissing it. You have this physical, but you have this inner world part of you as well, these inner planes of existence. We just, to keep it simple, have one, the mental, which is your thoughts, your visualizations, your imagery, right? The things you think or the thoughts you bring in, that you attract, you send out, etc. And then the spiritual, or we just call it spirit. And spirit in this sense is almost synonymous with energy, the energetic self, the emotional self. It's because we can just break down emotion as energy in motion. You can also consider this part of yourself, your connection to something bigger. So connection to source, the place where you come from, what we all come from, oneness, whatever you want to call it. And so you have these two other parts of yourself that many of us were not taught, or have neglected, or have not put much emphasis on. And yet it is these two parts of yourself, the mental and the spirit part of yourself, that create the external. It is the causes on these two planes of existence, the mental, so the thoughts that you're having, and the emotional or spirit, So the way you're feeling, how connected you are to what you really are, right? So oneness or God or source, how much you're tuning into that. It is really the causes of these two that lead to the effects you will see in the physical. So this is why you will hear quotes like, you get what you think about most of the time, or assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Why? Because that activates that on the spiritual part of your existence, which then starts creating those effects in your physical. Whereas if you're not connecting to that emotion and you're connecting to, say, something else like fear or suffering or whatever else, you're then creating more of that in your life because you're activating that on the spiritual plane. It has what's called correspondence on the mental plane, meaning it gives similar like thoughts on the mental, and usually that has correspondence then on the physical plane as well. Now, why is it so important to focus on these inner realms, these inner world part of yourself? Well, you may have heard of this, you may not have, but our reality, this reality we exist in, goes way beyond the physical. You know, it's easy to believe that we live in just a physical reality. But I'm sure you've heard ideas, for example, just with the spectrum of our vision, that we can't actually even see most of what's out there or hear most of the sound frequencies that are out there. And this is the case because 99.9+% of our reality is actually energy and empty space. There are so many frequencies and energies that we cannot perceive with the 5 senses that we are equipped with that help us to basically translate the physical world. There's so much in the unseen that we cannot see because we just do not have the sensory equipment in order to see it. But it is still there. It doesn't mean it's not there. We don't know what it is we don't know. And there is so much out there that we don't know. And so like mentioned, 99.9%, actually plus percent of reality is empty space and energy. And the remaining percentage of that, which is 0.000001% roughly, is physical matter reality, or what we call physical matter reality. You've probably also heard quotes such as, if we were to take all of the empty space and energy from every human on the planet, we would only have enough actual physical stuff, things that we consider physical, to fit within a sugar cube. Again, take all of the empty space, what physicality you left with, enough to fit a sugar cube. You, at a real level, are mainly empty space and energy. And trust me, this is a good thing. It means that you are malleable. It means you can change. It means you can transform. It means that if you learn how to do what we're going over in this video and other videos I've gone over, you can transform yourself. If you were just physical stuff that was static and couldn't change, then whatever you're given, that's what you have for the rest of your life, and that's your lot in life. Unfortunately, this level of belief, which a lot of people do carry, causes them to recreate the same thing over and over again through the same thoughts, the same feelings, which leads to the same actions, and so on. So keep in mind that reality is mainly non-physical, and that the physical follows the non-physical. So we want to put a little more attention now on that non-physical aspect of ourselves so that we can start influencing our physical lives more. And you can have a huge influence over your physical life when you do this. Now, there is a particular principle or universal law. In fact, it is the predominant law of the universe that we are going to use in order to essentially outsmart reality, if we want to call it that, or to remove ourselves from the illusion so we can see what's really going on. And this is called the law of balance and harmony. And we're going to go over this a bit deeper later, but to recognize, like I mentioned in the intro, balance is always trying to be maintained. And if we do certain particular things, in fact, actually putting ourselves out of balance in a specific way, life then has to start balancing to match and to rebalance and restore balance based on how we've imbalanced. And if we do this correctly, and we keep in mind that the outer world follows the inner, and we put ourselves into a certain place in the inner world that's out of balance with our current physical, there's only 2 ways for balance to then be maintained. Either your inner world falls back to balancing and being in congruence and alignment with your physical world, so inner congruent with physical, or your physical has to come up to match your inner world and create a new level of physical world or whatever you're experiencing there to be in alignment. Now, we'll discuss this a little bit more, and there's also an important lesson, again, the thing that stops most people that I mentioned that you have to do to get to this point. But that is the aim we are going for here. So we are going to jump into the law of balance and harmony at a deeper level now, but you need to know a little more about how reality operates. Now, in other videos, I've gone even deeper into it and put in some other aspects, but all you need to keep in mind, you don't need to know it all. You just need to know enough to be able to use it. It doesn't work more effectively if you know about it or not. In the same way, you don't have to know how electricity works to flip a switch and turn on a light bulb. You could know a little more about it. You don't have to know how a refrigerator works to plug it in and have it operate and be able to use it. You just know, oh, if I keep my food in here, they stay good longer. If I put stuff in here, it gets cooler, right? It's the same with this stuff. You don't need to know it at the most nuanced and deep level. If that interests you, then that's a different thing. It resonates with you and it's something you geek out about, then absolutely go for it. But you only need to know enough to be able to use this in order for it to operate well in your life. So let's go over the law of balance and harmony now at a deeper level so you can gain that understanding so that hopefully your mind can start buying into it so you can actually use it. So like I mentioned, law of balance and harmony is the predominant law of the universe. And what I want to say with that word harmony is I want you to understand this doesn't mean harmony in the sense of peace or joy or anything like that. What it really means is harmonizing, right? So things harmonizing with each other. Meaning if you have one frequency, you have another one that's harmonizing with it. They synergize, they go together. They're not out of harmony. They're not out of balance. So just keep in mind, it doesn't mean automatically peaceful or something like that. It means harmonizing with. Now, there are what's called balancing forces in the universe that are always trying to maintain balance. One thing to keep in mind is they don't care in which way they keep balance. They're just concerned with maintaining balance. And so the way this operates with us is it will always be trying to balance our inner world with our outer world. Meaning, if you have a certain thing you're doing in the inner world, you are going to find the correspondence or equivalent eventually in your physical world, right? So with a lot of people, for example, an easy example is you may know people who think very negatively. Maybe they watch the news a lot. Maybe they're always talking and gossiping and all this kind of stuff. And it seems that their life is a drama. They're always talking about all these little things going wrong and how they're suffering and whatever else. And I guarantee you it matches their internal world and their internal state. And so this is very balanced and harmonized because they're on that same frequency. They're like synchronized together. And so there's this reflection from the inner being created in the outer. However, this works the other way around as well. Let's say you have someone who is genuinely very positive. They're using these principles that you're learning here and probably in other places, and they're actually applying them. They're cultivating that inner world. Well, over enough time, and we'll go over a little bit how much time this is going to be, you will start noticing new physical effects taking place that match whatever's happening in the inner world. Now, if you were to look at someone who's been doing this for a very long time, you would see that this absolutely matches. If you're new to it and you're just starting to make that adjustment, it can create some different effects as things need to be replaced, changed out, and everything. And we're going to cover how to move through this period of what can be a little bit of chaos. But ultimately, if you were to find that person, again, they think very positively and high consciously, they feel that way, they take action from that place and everything else, you will notice that not only internally are they have a very cultivated garden, we could say, but they've been reaping the harvest of that physically as well. Their relationships are probably really good. They might have a good job or good income. Good fortuitous things seem to happen to them quite a bit. You will always find that kind of situation with this kind of person who's been doing this for a little bit of time consistently. So how can we use the law of balance and harmony to our advantage? Well, this is exactly what you can do. Going back to what we already mentioned, that the outer world follows the inner world, we want to start with the inner world. We want to start cultivating that inner world to be pristine and as good as we possibly can. This means elevating our level of thought, our level of visualization. This means being able to put ourselves in a feeling good place most often and to be able to release and let go of maybe many of the anchors that are holding us back from being able to feel better. When you do this long enough, the law of balance and harmony has to take effect. Because let's say you're in a physical circumstance that you don't really like, but that's where you're at because of whatever you've been internally up until that point. And let's say you've now decided to change your internal state and you've been doing that, let's just say, for example, for a few weeks. So you've been doing your best to think better. You've been doing your best to release things that come up that don't serve you, to change your behavior, your thoughts, your feelings, and everything else. You've been very consistent with it, genuinely. You haven't been like a seesaw. You've been doing your best. Of course, you have blips here and there, and that's perfectly fine, but you recover and you stay in that higher place. Well, now what you have is an imbalance. Your inner world is here and your physical circumstances are here. The physical circumstances still balanced out from a previous inner world that was here, but now your inner world's here. So there's only two things that can happen here, right? So the law of balance and harmony has to activate because there is an imbalance. There is not a harmonizing, and there needs to be a harmonizing. These need to start matching more. So there's one of two things that can happen. Here is the most common thing that happens. This is here. Your internal state is here. Some chaos starts to happen because there are changes occurring in your life because you are changing. People get scared, they come back down. But guess what? Balance and harmony has now been maintained. The law of balance, the balancing forces are satisfied because the balance has been maintained. You have come back down to the previous internal state or similar, and now they're harmonizing, they're balanced, and all is good. Obviously, that's not what we want if we want to progress in our life, bring about new results, and to create reality in the ways that we want. So, what is the second way? You persist with the internal state. And we're going to go over how to do this even when this starts kicking up a storm. Because this will kick up a storm, the physical stuff. Why? Because it's about to move up. And if it moves up, it has to leave some things behind that operate at this level of frequency, not this level of frequency. It has to create space for the new things that match this internal state that you have been cultivating. What's going to happen first, though, is there are going to be temptations for you to come back down. Now, why is this? Because the physical takes longer to start coming into your life than the energetic. The physical is a dense rate of vibration. Also understand that the physical world is also energetic, but it is just a very dense, slower rate of vibration, meaning it takes longer for it to appear. You already have some physical stuff in your life at that dense rate of vibration from a previous internal state that you were maintaining. It's already here. And so the easiest way for the law of balance and harmony to balance you at first is for you just to come back down. So you will notice that temptation because the law of balance and harmony doesn't care. It just wants balance and harmony. But when you refuse to let whatever's happening in your physical circumstances affect you internally, or if it does, you recover quickly and keep recovering and just keep putting yourself back up there, the law of balance and harmony goes, well, we're not able to balance in this way, so we're going to have to bring up the physical. And this is when opportunities start coming out of nowhere. This is when quantum leaps start taking place. I see it every single time when I work with clients, when I do it with myself or other people who are in the know. When it comes to this and actually act upon it, something comes out of left field every single time. Something you were not aware of, an opportunity from seemingly nowhere in this non-linear way comes into your life that helps catapult that up to here, whether this is new money opportunities, new relationships, new opportunities to be in different places, whatever it may be, starts to appear in your life. But you have to get through that period of uncertainty, which is exactly what we're going to cover later in this video, because if you can embrace the storm, as we call it, and keep that internal state and not let that storm hook you back into an internal state that matches it and now balance is maintained, there's only one way by law, balance, and harmony can go, which is up to meet this new internal state, to match and harmonize with this place you have been cultivating inwardly. And remember, the outer world follows the inner world. This is how you outsmart reality. And again, you're not really outsmarting it. What you're really doing is following deeper principles than most will follow or most are even aware of. And so what's really going on is you are outsmarting the common or frequent illusion that most people fall for. And again, we'll go over that a little bit later. But you are overcoming that. You are moving beyond that to higher principles, understanding that the law of balance and harmony is taking place and not being tricked or seduced down from this elevated state you've gotten yourself to back into the internal state that created whatever your previous physical circumstances are. There's a great quote that I love to come back to when I'm in the storm or just frequently because it's a great reminder. And that is to have more faith in the vision than your current physical circumstances. Another one is to deny the sense data. Don't worry about that. Put yourself back here. Take the actions that come from that place, and very soon this will come up to meet it, because it is a law of the universe. It's not something that works some of the times. It's not something that works for me but not you, or that person not you, the lucky few. It works for every single co-creative being, of which you are. Everyone watching this, including you, are a beautiful co-creative being, and this is within your power to do. It is your gift. It is your God-given right to have this. And so if you maintain that, you create that internal state, your physical world will start coming to match. So this is how the law of balance and harmony works. Hopefully that's sinking in and you're starting to see the dots connect a little bit here. Now there's another important part of this. What do we do when that storm comes up? So I'm here. I've been for a few weeks, maybe a month, maintaining this, and I feel so good internally, but now there's maybe some chaos in my life. There's some storm in my life. Something's being kicked up. I promise you this is actually a good thing, a clearing out, almost like a refreshing, creating space so that things can start operating at this new level that you are now vibrating at. And so next, we're gonna go over another important law called the law of continuity. This is crucial. This is a relatively unknown principle, but it is so important to understand because this is where most people stop or trip up, even when they're starting to do this stuff, learn this stuff or whatever else, because they're feeling good. If little things might be happening and boom, there's a storm. Wait a second, I thought positive things were supposed to happen. Positive things were supposed to come through. Why is there this chaos? Why is there this storm? I must be doing something wrong. I'm going back down. I'm going back to my comfort zone. But if you can embrace this part, then you are going to be in a new life. You're going to have new things come in. And understanding the law of continuity is going to go a long way to being able to embrace this part. This is something, again, we spend so much time with clients on to get this and to help them through, because through understanding this and knowing how to apply it, it just allows you to take quantum leaps in your life again and again and again. You repeat this process and you actually start to get to the point where you enjoy this process and recognize the chaos as a good thing, knowing, ooh, these amazing changes are coming if I can just embrace this. So without further ado, let's jump into what the law of continuity is and how to utilize it. Now, before we jump into the law of continuity, I want to invite you to sign up for my email list, where we're going to be giving even more lessons on reality creation, even some things I can't mention here on YouTube, some more techniques, some more methods, some more updates on things that are just going to be incredibly useful for you so that you're able to create your reality more in the ways that you want. So it's the second link down below if you'd like to sign up, completely free to do so. And we usually send out newsletters about once a week, sometimes more frequently, just depends on what's going on. But I would invite you to join us on the Reality Creator email list. And if you do, I'll be speaking to you very soon. Now, let's jump into the law of continuity. I mean, this was a game changer for me when I learned it, because I was aware of the storm and embracing it, but it was really this that helped me to buy more into it and actually use it more and then create these really magical effects in my life. You see, when you go and rebalance at this new level, you have to understand it's not like you're snapping your fingers and everything in your life automatically changes. Like all the things melt away and these new things come in automatically, because there is the law of continuity. There has to be this continuity sequence from one frequency to the next. So if you've heard the radio station analogy where you're shifting stations to another radio station, it's not like you go from jazz to rock and roll and then you switch the station all in one swift motion and now you're suddenly only hearing rock and roll. You're actually still going to hear jazz for a while, but if you stay on the rock and roll station, suddenly the jazz starts to sound a little more like rock and roll, and it starts adjusting a little bit more and then a little bit more until the point where you have rock and roll essentially playing out most of the time, because there's continuity. Think of it like a movie or video game. If you know what bad continuity is, it's sort of like if you're watching a show and the protagonists and the group are doing something, and then you snap your fingers and it seems they're like in this totally different place doing something else. And you're like, okay, what happened between then and here, right? And it almost breaks the game. It breaks the movie and the illusion of it, because you're like, there's all this space in between. And you're just like, yeah, trust me, bro, this happened and it's great. And oh, this person's so much more powerful now and blah, 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 right? It ruins the experience because we don't see any of what happened in between. And believe it or not, reality operates in the same way, where there has to be this continuity. And so I have an analogy that explains this even more deeply in a way that's understandable. You've probably heard of the idea that reality is similar to a simulation, similar to a game. And the scientific proof actually points in the direction that this is the case. And like a game, let's just say this is a very complex game, if there's no continuity, the illusion or point of the game, the immersion of the game is broken. And one thing, although it's beyond the scope of this video, the point of this game is for not the immersion to be broken. There's a reason we're here. I like to think of it almost like a sandbox for certain growth or experiential purposes. But if it's broken and that doesn't happen, then you can't really play the game. You won't actually try and experience things, and all of this kind of goes out by the wayside, right? And so here's an analogy that I want you to think of that can really illustrate this. So I want you to imagine that there's there's this very tall building. And in this building, there are all different levels of video games. Now, the higher you go up in the building, the more alluring the game is, the more you want to play that game. So the better games are towards the top floors. So when you get into 9, 10, 11, these are like the game of abundance. You're playing a video game where you're abundant, you're a king, everything's great, all your manifestations are coming through. But the lower levels are like suffering games. You hate them. They're really bad. It's like, oh, I'm living a life that's terrible. I have all these problems, etc., etc., etc. And so you're at this point in your life at one of these floors, wherever you're at. Maybe you're in a very suffering-based game. Maybe you're in a kind of a middle-level game, right? It's good, it's bad, it has its moments, its ups and downs, whatever else it is. But imagine that you're at one of these games and you're just in this game, operating in this game. Now, at each floor of these games, there is a programmer who's created the game. And they're on each of these floors with the game. So there's a programmer who's made this horror game at the lower levels, a programmer who made the abundance game, and every floor in between. Now, the programmer that's made the game at each floor has a specific job to make a genre of game for that floor. So, for example, the one who's making the horror game, even if you don't like it, they're making that game because it's their job to make that game. You cannot experience a different game on that floor. You could also think of this like a frequency. So if you were to go up to the programmer, you're in this game and you're giving them notes, you're like, you gotta change this, man, like please change this. You're begging them to change it. Can't you give me more money in this game? Can't you do this? Can't you do that? They'll just go, well, no, I can't. This floor, I am tasked with creating a horror game or a game where the protagonist is doing this, etc., etc. Now, how most people operate when they do this is they start complaining. They start yelling at the programmer. They start trying to, when the programmer's not looking, program their own things in, which the programmer just erases when they do that when they're not looking. And so most people are fighting the game that they're in, trying to fight against it, again, trying to be the outer world, fixing the outer world rather than doing the inner world stuff. And it doesn't matter what you do, because no matter what you do on this floor you're on, you're always going to have whatever genre of the floor is, right? In the same way that if you're at a certain frequency, you're never going to get anything different if you stay on that frequency. And so instead of doing that, all you have to do in order to change the game is to stop resisting the one you're in, go into the elevator of the building, and press up. Now, the elevator of the building is represented by the inner world. Again, you don't need to fight the video game set or whatever's there in the video game. You don't need to resist the things. It's just a game. In the game, whatever's showing up, again, have more faith in your vision than the current physical circumstances. You just need to go into the inner world, change the way you think, change the way you're feeling, move differently and take different action because of that. And this is the equivalent of going up in the elevator up to one of these more desirable games. Here's the trick though, and where people get caught up and where the law of continuity comes in. When you get into an elevator to go up to a higher floor, the programmer on the floor you're currently at will hand you a copy of the game you were just playing. So let's say you're on the horror floor and you're like, I'm going up now to the adventure floor, right? That's the game I want to play. The programmer goes, oh, hold on one second, you got to give this to them up at that floor, gives you a copy of the horror game, and up you go. Now, this is the equivalent of kind of going up here like we mentioned before. Here's your physical world, and here's this. Now you're on the adventure floor, and you hand a copy of the game that you were just at to the programmer on this floor. So they're taking a look at it, looking at the code, they're looking at how it plays out and goes, okay. So this is what we're working with. We're gonna have to find ways to write around this. We're gonna have to find ways to upgrade this, etc., etc. But you notice that you're on this floor and everything kind of looks the same. And you're like, wait a second, I thought I was on a new floor now. I thought I was in the adventure game or whatever else. I still see a lot of horror. That's right, because they're having to program around the game you were currently in for continuity's sake. But if you stay at that floor, which is the equivalent of staying up here, you'll notice, oh, some of that horror stuff that used to be there is gone. It kind of looks a lot nicer now. Oh, that stuff is gone too. Oh, okay, I'm taking different action. Oh, my thoughts are a lot better now. Oh, who's this person that just suddenly came into my life out of nowhere that's way better and way more aligned? Oh, job opportunity? Wow, that's amazing. But what most people do is they go up to this floor, hand a copy over to them. The programmer starts writing things out of their life that even though they want it changed, is uncomfortable to be written out, so certain relationships do start falling apart, maybe a job is taken away, certain things that were equivalent or congruent at the horror level floor start being removed from your life. That person gets scared, they get back in the elevator, and they run back down, or I say slowly, with some elevator music, go right back down to whatever station they were currently on, and then they feel comfortable again. Even though they say they don't like the situation, it's comfortable because they're used to it. So understand, when you move up floors in the game, when you move up frequencies, there is a law of continuity. You'll get up there and maybe see little changes here and there because you will start seeing that as you start vibrating in this new place. But it's not going to happen like that. There's continuity. Certain things have to be released and removed. Certain things have to be added. You can't just take one script, change it up, or one game, rip it up, and just replace it with another. There is a transitional period. And if you can maintain yourself, not hop back in the elevator and go right back down during that period, again, stay up here. The law of continuity will continue to take effect, and eventually you'll notice, wow, I'm in an adventure game now. Wow, I'm in an abundance game now. This is the way in which it's operating. Keep in mind that the law of balance and harmony does not care which way it balances. It does not care if it convinces you to go back to the previous floor and then that's balanced, or if you go up, stay, embrace the law of continuity, embrace the storm, and then that's the way it balances. It's not concerned either way. It's just concerned with balancing and harmonizing. So this is the law of continuity, and what I want you to keep in mind. And to just ask yourself when you're doing this, am I going back down floors? Are things about to change, but I'm creating, again, a step backwards because I'm just continually oscillating between these two floors and never staying here. I'm continually allowing balance back down here. So now one last thing we need to go over is embracing the storm, right? So how, when you're going up the elevator, going to the new game, you've handed over the game, you're on this new frequency, now there's a storm. Right? Things are being removed, things are being added, there's all this chaos around. What are some things you can do so you don't get hooked and unconsciously, before you know it, find yourself back on the previous floor or find yourself back in the previous emotions, feelings, thoughts, actions you've been taking? What things can we do to prevent this? Well, there's plenty we can actually do. So here are a few strategies that are going to help you. And again, these are some of the things that we actually give our clients and help them, right? So you're getting some really good quality stuff here. Obviously not the whole enchilada here, but some very, very good gold nuggets here that are going to help you immediately with this. Now, one of the crucial ones is doing what's called reducing the significance. If you're putting all of this importance, it's known as excess potential in reality transurfing, on it has to go one way or another. I've got to get this done. You're actually creating an imbalance that works against yourself. And so one of the best things you can do is to reduce the significance or lower the importance of the outcome for whatever it is that you're going for. You see, when you raise the importance, you pedestalize something. And this creates a massive imbalance which prevents you from ever receiving whatever the thing is. One easy way to visualize this is in a romantic setting. If you have someone who's so needy and pedestalizes you and whatever else, and almost makes your happiness, or their happiness, I should say, your responsibility. It is typically repellent, right? You almost want to move away from that energy. It's like, oh, it just feels icky. I want you to imagine that these new levels that you want to get to are the same way. If you pedestalize them, you're always pushing them further away. However, if you lower the importance and you basically detach from them, you actually become the opposite. You become magnetic and they start getting drawn to you because you're now safe for it to come in. There isn't this expectation or obligation that you're going to be unhappy or whatever if they don't. This also prevents you from getting hooked into the storm and coming right back down again, like we mentioned. Now, how can you use this in the moment? Well, there's a great little strategy called storm breakers, or also I've heard it be used as amalgams, where you have little phrases that you will say to yourself, internally, externally, whichever works, and really focus in, that helps you to reduce the significance in the moment. These are things like something positively amazing is happening for me right now. Understanding that the storm is not negative, in fact, it is a clearing out and it's very good for you. It could be, you know, I live in a friendly universe and I know it has my back. Understanding that this is occurring, I don't need to come into a negative space, it's actually for my benefit. What I'll do is I'll pop up a few different ones that you can use on screen that I find useful, but also feel free to come up with your own that can help you in the moment when you feel like you're getting hooked, when you're raising all the importance, going like, oh my God, this has to happen. It's the end of the world. If it doesn't happen, what am I going to do if it doesn't happen? Wait a second. Hold on a second. Where are my amalgams? Where are my storm breakers? Let me calm down here. This is actually one of the most crucial things to do in reducing the significance, because if you raise the significance or importance, you are absolutely activating balancing forces against yourself. If you're reducing the significance, you are activating balancing forces in your favor. Now, the next thing to do, obviously, is to continually maintain a really cultivated inner world. Again, if you keep your thoughts high, your feelings high, and you take actions from that place as well, because you will in correspondence, you're going to see more and more of that come up to meet you. When the storm appears, this is especially important to do, because if you get hooked by the storm and go back to negative spaces and whatever else, again, balance will be maintained down at this point. And so have things you're doing in order to maintain a positive outlook. Now, one thing I want to mention is don't do this in a disingenuous way, in a force-based way. You try and do this, but if you can't, just reach for the best thing you can reach for. So you don't have to go from 0 to 100. Oh, I feel a lot of fear right now, so I need to go to love. Don't do that. Just reach for whatever you can reach for. Do it in degrees. And you'll find you can kind of go up the consciousness scale or the feeling good scale kind of a bit at a time, one tiny 1% turn at a time. If you try and take a huge leap, you're probably going to feel worse. You're going to get this kind of rebound effect where you're feeling even worse because you can't access that thing. So find something within range, the best thing you can see. Once you see that, you'll be able to see further. So it's not about feeling perfect or as high as possible. It's just about feeling a little bit better, and then a little bit better, and then a little bit better. And if you feel bad again, just start again. Feel a little bit better. Feel a little bit better. Now, when you're in the storm and chaos, it's going to be harder to feel as good as you would when you're not. But you can train yourself to get better and better at this, and it's always a victory when you allow yourself and are able to get yourself to feel a bit better. It's always a victory, and always maintain that it is. If you get depressed because through contrast, you're like, oh, I can't get to this point, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So aim to feel good now, especially when the storm is there, but don't be disingenuous. Just go as high as you can, then a little higher, then a little higher. There is a method by Abraham Hicks, which I think is like Rampage of Appreciation, which is a great tactic for this. And all you do, it's for about 3 minutes. You just say everything you're appreciative for, and you just start with the little things. And you're like, you know, I'm just appreciative that I'm here, I'm breathing, I have a home, a roof over my head, and food every day. I have water, I have a beautiful partner, I love my son, I'm so appreciative for him. And you just let it flow. And what you'll find is you'll get appreciative for more and more and more, and it builds. And where you started to where you end up are going to be completely different. Again, it can happen very quickly. So just work on in degrees, and that can build momentum very, very fast. Now, one thing that's going to really help you with maintaining that inner world is getting a better inner mental diet. A lot of people's inner diet is atrocious. Like if we were to compare it to a physical diet, you know, they're eating donuts and pizzas and fatty foods and about 5,000 calories a day when it equivalents for their inner diet. You know, they're watching TikTok, they're watching, you know, shorts all the time, they're watching things based in fear, they're watching the news, you know, they're on their phone 10 hours a day. This is influencing that mental and spirit plane of yourself, which again is creating your physical world. And so the first thing is reducing your time on those things, you know, getting out in nature more, meditating more, giving yourself that space to get out of that overthinking habit, and which is usually putting you in fear or other places. The second thing to do is to find better influences or a mental diet that influences you positively. A great one for this is books. Courses is another one. Videos like this or similar kind of topics that help you feel good. Laughing is a great one. So if there are things you find funny, engaging with those things. But finding those activities, that information that is of a much higher energy will start to influence you subconsciously, will start to influence this inner diet, and it's like the difference between eating a junk diet and a clean diet. And so the first thing is reducing the amount of time, period, that you're spending on these things if you're spending a lot of time, because again, these things are subconsciously and unconsciously programming you, whether you know it or not. And then when you do engage with it, doing your best to be influenced or consuming things from a content perspective that are beneficial to you and help elevate your inner world, not deflate it. Now, one last thing that is going to massively help you when it comes to creating your reality in the ways we've talked about today is understanding something called the mirror principle, which I go over in this video here. This is another predominant or one of the main principles of the universe that synergizes so well with what we've gone over today. The combination of this video plus that video is going to set you up to be able to do so much. So I would recommend going to watch that next.